The Space Shuttle Challenger disaster happened on January 28, 1986, when NASA's shuttle exploded only 73 seconds after takeoff, killing all 7 crew members on board. The launch took place at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida and had gained huge public attention because a school teacher was part of the crew, chosen to become the first civilian in space. The tragedy occurred due to the failure of an O-ring, which was a rubber sealing component in one of the solid rocket boosters. That morning, the shuttle was launched in unusually cold weather, and engineers had warned that low temperatures might reduce the elasticity of the O-rings. Despite these concerns, NASA went ahead with the launch. Shortly after liftoff, at around 11:39 a.m., the defective O-ring failed, allowing extremely hot gases to escape and damage the external fuel tank. This caused a catastrophic chain of events, as flames burned through the tank, leading to the shuttle breaking apart in midair. The explosion was broadcast live on television, leaving viewers around the world in shock. All 7 crew members aboard Challenger lost their lives when the crew cabin separated and fell into the ocean. The exact moment of their deaths is not fully known, but it is believed that they survived the initial breakup and later lost consciousness during the descent. The Halifax explosion occurred on December 6, 1917, in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and remains one of the most devastating explosions in history. The disaster began when 2 ships collided in the narrow Halifax harbor, the French cargo ship Mont Blanc and the Norwegian ship Imo. The Mont Blanc was carrying highly volatile materials, including TNT, benzol, and picric acid. As the 2 ships navigated through the harbor's narrow passage, miscommunication and navigational mistakes led to a collision. The impact sparked a fire on the Mont Blanc, and the crew, realizing the growing danger, abandoned the ship. However, the burning vessel drifted toward the busy waterfront, attracting a crowd of onlookers who were unaware of the impending threat. At 9:04 a.m., the Mont Blanc exploded with catastrophic force. The blast destroyed much of northern Halifax and the neighboring community of Richmond. It released energy equivalent to approximately 2.9 kilotons of TNT, creating a massive shockwave that shattered windows up to 50 miles away and triggered a large tsunami in the harbor. Over 2,000 people were killed, including many children and workers in nearby factories and homes. Around 9,000 individuals were injured, with some blinded by flying glass or trapped beneath debris. The explosion also destroyed about 12,000 buildings, leaving thousands homeless. Hospitals were overwhelmed, and relief efforts were quickly organized with help from across Canada and the United States. The Halifax explosion led to major developments in emergency management and disaster response systems and remains a defining moment in the city's history. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill was one of the worst environmental disasters in United States history. It began on April 20, 2010, when a blowout occurred on the Deepwater Horizon oil rig, which was drilling an exploratory well in the Gulf of Mexico. The rig was owned by Transocean and leased by BP, and it was located about 41 miles off the coast of Louisiana. The blowout happened when a surge of natural gas burst through a concrete seal that had recently been placed to close the well. The gas traveled up the drilling pipe and ignited, causing a massive explosion on the platform. The blast killed 11 workers and injured 17 others. The rig burned for 2 days before eventually sinking into the Gulf. After the rig collapsed, the damaged well continued to leak oil into the ocean for 87 days before it was finally sealed. By that time, an estimated 210 million gallons of crude oil had been released into the Gulf of Mexico. The spill caused extensive environmental destruction, severely damaging marine ecosystems, harming wildlife, and polluting coastlines across 5 states. The region's fishing and tourism industries also suffered major economic losses. In response to the disaster, BP and the U.S. government launched a massive cleanup operation involving oil skimming, controlled burns, and chemical dispersants to break up the oil. In the aftermath, BP and its partners faced numerous lawsuits, and BP paid billions of dollars in fines, penalties, and settlement costs. The Boston Marathon bombing took place on April 15, 2013, during the annual Boston Marathon. 2 homemade bombs were detonated near the finish line, causing widespread devastation. The devices, made from pressure cookers packed with shrapnel, exploded about 12 seconds apart in a crowded spectator area. The blasts killed 3 people and injured more than 260 others, many of whom suffered severe wounds, with several requiring amputations. The attackers were later identified as 2 brothers of Chechen origin who have been living in the United States for several years. The bombing triggered a massive manhunt involving law enforcement agencies, including the FBI and local police, who launched an intense search for the suspects. A major breakthrough occurred on April 18, when the brothers killed a police officer during an attempted escape. They then carjacked a vehicle, leading police on a high-speed chase and engaging in a shootout in the Boston suburb of Watertown. During the confrontation, one brother was killed, while the other managed to escape. A citywide lockdown was immediately imposed, and on April 19, the surviving brother was discovered hiding in a boat in a Watertown backyard, where he was arrested. He was later convicted on multiple charges, including using a weapon of mass destruction, and was sentenced to death. The bombing shocked the nation, raised serious concerns about domestic terrorism, and led to stricter security measures at major public events. The Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting took place on December 14, 2012, in Newtown, Connecticut, and remains one of the deadliest mass shootings in United States history. The tragedy began when Adam Lanza, a 20-year-old local resident, shot and killed his mother at their home before driving to Sandy Hook Elementary School armed with an assault rifle and other firearms. Lanza entered the school by shooting through a glass window near the main entrance. Once inside, he opened fire on students and staff, and within just 5 minutes, he killed 20 children between the ages of 6 and 7, along with 6 adult staff members. The staff included teachers and the school principal, who attempted to protect the children. During the chaos, some teachers and students managed to hide, preventing even more casualties. Lanza ended the attack by taking his own life with a self-inflicted gunshot when police arrived at the scene. The shooting sent shockwaves across the nation and sparked intense debates about gun control and school safety. It led to widespread demands for legislative reforms to prevent similar tragedies. In the aftermath, President Barack Obama and other political leaders pushed for stricter gun control measures, including expanded background checks and bans on assault weapons. However, major national legislation failed to pass, although some states introduced tighter gun laws. The Sandy Hook shooting left a deep and lasting impact on American society, especially in how schools handle security and prepare for emergency situations. The victims are remembered every year, and the Sandy Hook Promise Foundation was established to advocate for the prevention of gun violence. The Bhopal gas tragedy, one of the world's worst industrial disasters, occurred on the night of December 2 to 3, 1984, in Bhopal, India. It began at the Union Carbide India Limited pesticide plant, where a highly toxic chemical called methyl isocyanate, MIC, was stored in large quantities for pesticide production. Poor maintenance, faulty safety systems, and inadequate staff training created extremely dangerous conditions at the plant. On the night of the disaster, water accidentally entered a tank containing about 42 tons of MIC, triggering a runaway chemical reaction. The rising pressure and temperature inside the tank caused a massive leak of MIC gas and other poisonous chemicals. Safety mechanisms designed to control such leaks, including refrigeration units and gas scrubbers, either failed or had been turned off to reduce costs. As a result, a deadly gas cloud spread rapidly over nearby residential areas, where tens of thousands of people were asleep. Many victims woke up coughing, choking, and suffering from burning eyes. Panic quickly spread as the gas caused immediate health effects such as nausea, breathlessness, and temporary blindness. The densely populated slums surrounding the plant were especially vulnerable. Within hours, thousands of people had died, and chaos took over the city as hospitals became overwhelmed. Official reports suggest that around 3,000 people died in the first few days, while later estimates placed the death toll at over 15,000 due to long-term health complications. An estimated 500,000 people were exposed to the gas, leading to chronic illnesses, respiratory problems, blindness, and birth defects in the years that followed. The Bhopal gas tragedy sparked widespread outrage and legal battles over corporate responsibility. Although Union Carbide faced international criticism, survivors of the disaster have struggled for decades to receive proper compensation and adequate healthcare. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945 were carried out by the United States to force Japan's surrender and to avoid a costly invasion. The Pacific War had been long and brutal, and Japan showed no signs of giving up. On August 6, 1945, the U.S. dropped an atomic bomb codenamed Little Boy on Hiroshima, a major Japanese military and industrial center. The bomb, containing uranium-235, detonated at 8:15 a.m., releasing an explosion equivalent to about 15 kilotons of TNT. The blast instantly destroyed much of the city, killing an estimated 70,000 to 80,000 people. Many more later died from injuries and radiation sickness in the days and months that followed, bringing the death toll to over 140,000 by the end of 1945. The intense heat and radiation caused horrific burns, while the shockwave flattened buildings, leaving survivors with severe long-term health effects. 3 days later, on August 9, the United States dropped a second atomic bomb called Fat Man on Nagasaki, a city of significant industrial importance. This plutonium bomb was even more powerful, with a yield of about 21 kilotons of TNT. However, Nagasaki's mountainous terrain reduced the extent of destruction. Still, an estimated 40,000 people were killed instantly, and the total deaths reached around 70,000 by the end of the year. These bombings led Japan to surrender on August 15, 1945, officially bringing World War II to an end. The event sparked serious ethical debates about the use of nuclear weapons and triggered the Cold War arms race. In total, the two bombings claimed over 200,000 lives and left lasting scars on Japan's landscape, public health, and society. The suffering of survivors and the global impact of these attacks continue to influence discussions on war and peace today. The Texas City disaster, which occurred on April 16, 1947, remains one of the deadliest industrial accidents in United States history. It began when a French cargo ship, the SS Grand Camp, docked at the port of Texas City and caught fire while being loaded with ammonium nitrate fertilizer, a highly explosive material widely used in agriculture. The fire was discovered around 8 a.m., and despite attempts to put it out, the situation quickly escalated out of control. As the flames grew stronger, the captain ordered the ship's hatches to be sealed in an effort to cut off oxygen and stop the fire, but this strategy proved ineffective. At 9:12 a.m., the ammonium nitrate ignited, triggering a massive explosion that completely destroyed the Grand Camp and sent a towering mushroom cloud into the sky. The blast was heard up to 150 miles away. The explosion released powerful shock waves that destroyed nearby buildings, homes, and factories. The docks were completely leveled, and nearby oil refineries and chemical plants caught fire, further worsening the disaster. Flaming debris, including parts of the Grand Camp, was thrown into surrounding areas, igniting additional fires. A second explosion occurred the following day when another ship, the SS High Flyer, also carrying ammonium nitrate, detonated. The combined blasts caused widespread destruction across Texas City. This disaster killed an estimated 581 people, including firefighters, dock workers, and onlookers, and injured over 5,000 others. Many victims were never identified, and the explosions left thousands homeless, destroying hundreds of buildings and causing millions of dollars in damage. The Chernobyl disaster, recognized as one of the worst nuclear accidents in history, occurred on April 26, 1986, at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Pripyat, Ukraine. The accident took place during a late-night safety test on reactor number 4, which was designed to simulate a power failure in order to check the reactor's emergency backup systems. However, a mix of operator mistakes and serious design flaws in the reactor led to a catastrophic breakdown during the test. The reactor's power level dropped almost to zero, and attempts to raise it again caused dangerous instability. The operators shut down vital safety systems, and the reactor spiraled out of control. A sudden surge in power triggered a massive explosion in the reactor core, blowing the roof off the building and releasing enormous amounts of radioactive material into the atmosphere. Fires erupted, and radiation spread across large parts of Europe, especially Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia. The explosion instantly killed 2 plant workers, and in the following days, 28 emergency responders, including firefighters, died from acute radiation sickness after receiving extremely high doses while trying to control the disaster. In total, it is estimated that around 50 direct deaths resulted from the explosion and radiation exposure. However, the long-term consequences were even more devastating. Tens of thousands of people were evacuated from nearby regions, and the exclusion zone around Chernobyl remains uninhabited to this day. Radiation exposure has been linked to thousands of cancer cases, particularly thyroid cancer, along with other long-term health problems. Estimates suggest that the final death toll due to radiation exposure may range from about 4,000 to tens of thousands in the coming decades. The Columbine High School shooting, known as one of the deadliest school shootings in United States history, took place on April 20, 1999, in Littleton, Colorado. 2 senior students, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, carried out a carefully planned attack that shocked the entire nation. Harris and Klebold had spent over a year preparing for the assault, collecting firearms, homemade bombs, and large amounts of ammunition. On the morning of the attack, they placed bombs in the school cafeteria, intending for them to explode and cause massive casualties. When the bombs failed to detonate, they entered the school armed with semi-automatic weapons and began shooting randomly at students and staff. The attack began at approximately 11:19 a.m., when Harris and Klebold opened fire on students outside the school before moving indoors. They roamed through hallways and the library, shooting at anyone they encountered while laughing and taunting their victims. The pair also exchanged gunfire briefly with police officers who arrived quickly at the scene. The shooting rampage continued for about 47 minutes, after which Harris and Klebold returned to the library and took their own lives. In total, 12 students and 1 teacher were killed, while 21 others were injured by gunfire. Many more suffered deep psychological trauma. The Columbine shooting had a major impact on the United States, leading to intense debates over gun control, school security, and the influence of violent media. It also brought significant changes in how law enforcement responds to active shooter situations. Many survivors of the tragedy continue to speak out and advocate for stronger measures to prevent similar disasters in the future. The sinking of the RMS Titanic occurred on April 15, 1912, when the British passenger liner went down in the North Atlantic Ocean during its voyage to New York City. The ship, built by the White Star Line, was the largest and most luxurious vessel of its time and was widely believed to be unsinkable due to its advanced safety features, including 16 watertight compartments. However, these compartments did not extend high enough to completely stop flooding in case of serious damage. On the night of April 14 at 11:40 p.m., the Titanic collided with an iceberg. The iceberg scraped along the ship's starboard side, causing a series of small punctures across multiple watertight compartments. Although the ship appeared stable at first, it soon became evident that the first 5 compartments were flooding faster than the ship could remain afloat. Over the next few hours, the Titanic began to sink. Despite sending out distress calls, the nearest ship capable of rescue, the Carpathia, was too far away to reach in time. The disaster was made worse by the shortage of lifeboats. There were only 20 lifeboats on board, enough for only about half of the passengers and crew, due to outdated maritime safety regulations. In addition, many lifeboats were launched only partially filled because several passengers were hesitant to leave the ship. Out of approximately 2,224 people on board, only 706 survived, meaning over 1,500 passengers and crew members lost their lives. Most of the victims were from the lower-class compartments and crew members, who had less access to lifeboats. The sinking of the Titanic remains one of the deadliest ocean tragedies in history and led to major improvements in maritime safety regulations, including the requirement for sufficient lifeboats and the creation of the International Ice Patrol to monitor iceberg dangers in the North Atlantic. The tragedy of 9/11, which occurred on September 11, 2001, was a series of coordinated terrorist attacks carried out by the extremist group Al-Qaeda against the United States. The attacks began when 19 terrorists hijacked 4 commercial airplanes. At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11, a Boeing 767, crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. Just 17 minutes later, at 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175, another Boeing 767, struck the South Tower. Both buildings suffered severe structural damage, and fires erupted across multiple floors. The attacks continued at 9:37 a.m., when American Airlines Flight 77, a Boeing 757, crashed into the Pentagon. Meanwhile, the fourth hijacked aircraft, United Airlines Flight 93, was heading toward Washington, D.C. However, passengers on board, having learned about the earlier attacks, attempted to overpower the hijackers. As a result, the plane crashed into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, at 10:03 a.m. It is believed that the hijackers intended to target either the White House or the U.S. Capitol. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed, followed by the collapse of the North Tower at 10:28 a.m. The fall of both towers caused enormous destruction, damaging nearby buildings and leading to the eventual collapse of the entire World Trade Center complex. In total, the attacks resulted in the deaths of 2,977 people, including 246 aboard the 4 airplanes, 2,606 in the World Trade Center and surrounding areas, and 125 at the Pentagon. Thousands more were injured. The aftermath of 9/11 had a profound impact on global security policies and led to the United States launching the War on Terror, including the invasion of Afghanistan. The Las Vegas shooting, also known as the Route 91 Harvest Festival shooting, occurred on October 1, 2017, and remains one of the deadliest mass shootings in United States history. The attack took place during a country music festival on the Las Vegas Strip, which was attended by more than 22,000 people. The shooter, a 64-year-old man from Nevada, opened fire from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel, where he had set up a large collection of firearms. He had checked into the hotel several days earlier and brought with him 23 guns, many of which were equipped with bump stocks, devices that allow semi-automatic weapons to fire at a much faster rate. At approximately 10:05 p.m., during singer Jason Aldean's performance, the shooter began firing into the crowded festival grounds below, releasing more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition. The shooting continued for about 10 minutes, causing widespread panic as concertgoers tried to escape. In total, 58 people were killed, and over 850 others were injured, either by gunfire or during the chaos that followed. The shooter's motive remains unknown, as he left no manifesto or clear explanation for his actions. Despite extensive investigations by the FBI and local authorities, no definite motive was ever determined. After carrying out the attack, he took his own life before law enforcement officers entered his hotel room. The shooting reignited debates over gun control, particularly regarding bump stocks, which were later banned by the Trump administration in 2018. In the aftermath, the Las Vegas community united under the slogan "Vegas Strong" to support the victims, their families, and the survivors of this tragic attack. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you learned something, make sure to leave a like, comment below with other historical events you would like me to cover in the future, and subscribe if you're interested in continuing to learn more. Thank you again, and goodbye.